also like to acknowledge the Greater Kulin Nation and the ancestors and the land on which we stand, and the elders here today of those nations, and the elders of other Australian nations, and those too of visiting nations. Forgive me if you find my words harsh, but believe me, they are spoken with love. Christian invaders do not like to think of themselves as vandals and barbarians. Instead, they prefer their own myth that they are spiritual and economic liberators. For how else could a Christian kill, rape and steal from people who had done him no harm? If you insist on stealing the land of another people, and those people resist, then the proven way to break the spirit of the opposition is to kill their women and children. In most cases, they are easier to attack, but more importantly, they represent the future. Without them, the fighters lose their purpose and their will to survive. Another proven tactic in the colonists' handbook of operations is to destroy the culture which sustains the people, the thing which supports and guides their life on earth and thereafter. Colonial Rule 1, prevent their use of language. Rule 2, tell the children their parents are devil worshippers. Rule 3, prevent access to food and water. In exchange for the land, give them a black book and tell them you have come to save them. Tell them they need to wear clothes, worship the wheel, love the fence, respect the solemn wig which plucks the children from their arms, punish the grandmother for daring to write to the Queen begging for her mercy, remove the old man to a foreign country if he dares question your theft of his grandchildren. You will need craven malice to perform these tasks, the kind of glee peculiar to those who think themselves superior. Only after all this hard work is done do you say sorry, reluctantly. The traitors in your tent who call for justice, they have always been there. The milksops, the bleeding hearts, the turncoats, the doubting Thomases, the faint hearts, those who defy the crown and the bishop's ring, tell them they're dreaming. But the real problem is the defeated. You probably neglected to sterilise all of them. They will seek each other out, murmur in the dark, the devil's tongue, share a bed, love, grow a child, whisper to that child the secrets of the time before, how their grandparents said the world was made and how you should walk in that world, talk in that world. Those children were called Murrindru Yana, Archie Roach, Alexis Wright, Udguru Nunakal, Rachel Perkins, Douglas Nichols, Richard Franklin. There are many, many thousands of them. Those children just confuse the hell out of the victors because they've been told by their grandfather that this was God's own country, the country of larrikin irreverence, the country of the fair go, the only country on earth where the soil had been won without bloodshed, that the black people just disappeared, and they believed their grandfather. The victors learnt at school, wrote it on their hearts that the defeated were nomads, didn't use the land, even left water in the rivers. What can you do with a people like that? The victor's teacher thought he was doing the right thing. He'd been taught to worship the flag and honour his parents, teachers and the laws. He'd been taught the defeated were a relic of the human race. So that's what he taught the blameless children, because you cannot have empire if you doubt yourself. That's why the teacher wasn't taught, when he was a blameless child, that his grandfather actually saw the heathens sowing grains, goddammit, almost like a Christian. The explorers saw the sown grain irrigated, harvested, siloed, traded, ground on mills. They witnessed thousands of hectares of tilled yam pastures. They saw thousands of kilometres of aquaculture channels, the husbandry of waterfowl. Today, the victors chastise the defeated and tell them they cannot use words like irrigate, harvest, till, farm, because Europeans own those words and invented the word that describes themselves: agriculture. They don't want to share the word, they don't want it to be colonised. The victor's grandfather was called Sir Thomas Mitchell, Augustus Gregory, Christopher Giles, Charles Sturt, and they described this business we must not call farming, because the Christian justification for taking land was that no one was at home. Because they were too stupid to use it properly. It had been taken from them so that more resourceful people could plough until the soil blew away and irrigate the dust until no water remained in the river. This they called productivity. The worst result for the victor is if the defeated keep speaking their language in defiance of Rule 1. You tell them that their old language is a repository of devil worship. Of course, there are some savage recalcitrants who refuse because they know that in their language are all the secrets of the land: the sowing, the tilling, the irrigating, the construction, the genetic modification of the plants by eons of selection and trade, the care, the nurture, the respect for land, the mother. And an even worse result for the victor is if the children who'd grown up in dormitories, fed on soup and psalms, if those infernal children rediscovered their land and their secrets and, God help us, the will to live. And those wretched, debased, chastity-destined children, charity-destined children, there is a difference, leap from their language and the remembering, thank goodness I didn't choose chastity, and the remembering of their grandmother's stories told in secret in the dead of night, in whispers, and they remember, God damn their hides, the big story, the really big story. Of course, those children, after all the years of victor education, are tentative, unsure of themselves, because every preacher and teacher in the land tells them this story cannot be true. But hang on, those children read about the explorers, the governor's letters, and what blinks at them like a neon light is that if the old people could grow more food than they needed, if they had weapons to subdue their neighbour, then according to the victor's black book, they should become imperial, colonial, invade someone for goodness sake. Those bastard children read the book of the world and saw that no people who had lived for more than a few thousand years had ever been able to resist the temptation to colonise their neighbour's land. The defeated grandchild looks at the map of his country, this country, Australia, and sees 350 languages and a people who had lived for over 60,000 years without imperialism. And the little bastard thinks, they must have chosen peace. Not peace without punishment or revenge or the venting of destructive spleen. Not peace without scheming and plotting and violent reparation, because after all, the bastard's ancestors are only human. But a peace wrought in ceremony and talk, the smoke of many fires over generations of thousands of years along lines of country so vast that they negotiate the peace with people of such difference